They call it the Baychimo, Alaska's ghost ship, left in the ice back in 1931. Should have sunk, but it never did. For decades, people swore they saw it drifting out of the fog. No crew, no lights, just that damn horn carrying for miles. Locals told us it hunts men, not cargo. I laughed it off until the winter of 2010. I climbed under deck myself. The steel felt alive, freezing hot against my hands. The wheelhouse smelled like oil and old smoke, like the crew had just stepped out. But I was alone, and still saw footprints circling me. Shadows moved, and then 3 knocks from deep inside the hull, right under my boots. Believe me, I dealt with more paranormal crap on that ship than I ever thought possible. So before we continue, please make sure to like and subscribe to support the channel, and comment down below where you're watching from. Thanks. I was 26 that winter, too old to be dumb, too young to say no. We were up near the northwest coast of Alaska. Cold like a mean god had his hand over the world. The unit called it a cold weather lab. A trial, a box to tick before some general smiled at a slide deck. We called it freezing our asses off. There were 5 of us on the team. Me on point, Reyes on the gun, Doc Miller, who wasn't really a doc but knew where to shove a needle, Sing with the radio and the map, O'Rourke, who had the kind of luck you only see on drunk nights and bad deployments. We had a butter bar in the company back at base, a fresh lieutenant who liked to say outstanding, like it tasted new. Top was a voice on the net, gravel and peppermint coffee. He kept us honest. Our job was simple. Recon along the ice-choked coast. Check on a weather station that kept blinking off. Record wind, record ice. Record a whole lot of nothing and call it data. We moved in trucks till the road ended. Then we moved on foot. The world was white and gray and the color of old bones. The days were short. The nights felt endless. We lived out of wet tents and rations that tasted like the cardboard box they shipped in. We kept the stove hissing like it might sing. We kept our boots dry. We told the same jokes. We said we'd rather be anywhere else. And then we laughed, because it was a lie and we all knew it. First week we made our patrols. The wind shoved us around. Snow grains bit our faces. The sea looked like a busted mirror. Ice pans bumped each other. The sound was teeth on foil. We logged the weather station. It was a squat tin thing with a mast and a sensor that liked to die when the wind screamed. We tightened bolts. We cursed cold metal. We put a glove on the wrench when it stuck to a nut. We got it working. We moved out. At night we lay in our bags. The stove blew and stubborn. Steam rose off sweaty socks. We talked about home. Reyes about his kid barely walking. Miller about cheap Texas beer and a girl he would marry if the world quit kicking him. O'Rourke about winning at cards again. Sing about books and science. He used words like albedo and laughed when we threw snow at him. Me? I talked about nothing. I listened to the wind scratch the tent. I listened to the sea breathe under ice. It felt normal as you get out there. Routine is a shelter. We built walls with it. Wake at first gray, melt snow. Cram calories, check gear. Move, log, move, sleep, sleep. Repeat, keep your hands, keep your feet. Don't be stupid. Don't be a hero. Heroes freeze first. That was our world, until it wasn't. Little things go bad first. A zipper that sticks. A canteen cap that cracks. A map that gets wet and the ink bleeds into soft blue veins. We started hearing it on the 3rd week. A horn, way out. Low and sad and wrong. Not wind, not ice shifting. A horn like a ship calling to nobody. A sound from another time. We all heard it. We all said we didn't. Second night, I woke to a smell. Tar and wet steel. Old oil that got into your clothes and never let go. I was a motor pool guy before infantry. I knew that stink, but there was no motor near us. Just a stove and 4 idiots snoring. In the morning, Reyes said his night vision flickered. He blamed the cold, said the tube hated the wind. Said the battery was crap. We all nodded. Of course, batteries lie in the cold. Night vision lies when it's tired. Gear lies. People lie too. We all lied together. We passed a stretch of coast where the ice looked bruised, like something heavy had pressed through. Long gouges, deep, and on the ice, like beads, small rust flakes. You don't get rust out there. Not red like that. Not unless metal is bleeding. Later that day, we ran into two locals on snow machines. They stopped and stared like we were a weird dream. We shared coffee from a thermos. They were quiet men, weather-written faces. They asked what we were doing. I said we were counting snowflakes. They didn't laugh. One of them, a gray-bearded guy with eyes like wet stone, tapped the direction of the sea. He said a word. Baychimo. He said it again when I shrugged. He tapped his ear like, listen. He said the ship that won't drown, the one that doesn't want to be found. He looked at us like we were children touching a stove. Then he took his cup, nodded, and they rode off, engines thin and fast in the cold air. That night, the horn boomed again. Closer. The stove hiccuped like it was nervous. I got up and went outside to piss, and the sky was clear, stars like broken glass. The sea was a dark sheet, and out there, near the teeth of the offshore ice, a light blinked. Not a star, not an aircraft. A single steady eye, then gone, then there again. I blinked and it vanished. Maybe it was never there. My eyes water in the cold. That's the story I told myself. In the tent, Singh read out loud from his phone. He had a file of weird notes. He liked facts. He said the SS Baychimo was a freighter. Abandoned in the early 1930s when the ice trapped it. It kept drifting for decades. People saw it, tried to board it, couldn't keep it. It would slip away in fog and storm and bad luck. Last sighted in the late 1960s. He said the word legendary and smiled like it tasted good. Unsinkable, he said. Like a cockroach, Reyes said. Cursed, O'Rourke said, because he liked the sound of it. Then the wind pushed on the tent wall hard, like a palm, and the horn came again, low and long, and it got into our bones. We all went quiet after that. Because there's joking and then there's listening. We were listening now. We hit the weather station on a morning that chewed your face off. Visibility down to the world at your feet. Snow and a fine spray. The station mast had a new kink like something had leaned on it. We cursed and got to work. Wrenches. Tape. Hands going numb inside gloves. Miller muttering about frostnip and idiots. I was up on the little ladder when I heard boots on ice behind me. Thought it was Reyes. I said, grab the toolbox. He didn't answer. I looked back. No one there. The team was 20 feet off, heads down, working. But I heard the steps again. Slow, measured. Wood on ice. Like an old board checking its weight with every step. Knock it off, I said louder. Quit screwing around. The sound faded. We finished the fix. Packed up. We moved down along the shore. The sea ice had opened in a long lead. Black water. Breathing. Steam rising like ghosts. The air smelled like iron. Reyes pointed. Tracks, he said. Boot prints. Not ours. Not fresh, but not old either. Not one set. Many. Different sizes. They came from the sea. From the black water edge. No machine tracks. No snowshoe pattern. Just boots. Heel and toe in a little twist like someone trying to keep their feet on slick ice. They moved inland toward a low ridge and then turned, as a group, and went back out toward the water. The last prints were at the very edge, like the sea had eaten the people who made them. Then nothing. You ever seen prints come out of the water? Miller asked. We all shook our heads. Maybe a party, O'Rourke said. Crazy locals. A stunt. Stop, Singh said, serious. Don't be that guy. We stood while the wind talked around us. Somewhere, far off, a gull laughed. You don't forget that sound on ice. It sounds like a person trying and failing to be brave. We followed the prints for a bit. We lost them in drift. We got back on mission. That's the word we use when we want to pretend we control the story. Mission. It's a shield you hold up against the weird. It works until it doesn't. That night, the radio popped with a voice I didn't know. Male. Slurred by static. Words that didn't match. The dialect wrong. Old. He said position. He said bearing. He said pat closing, like the ice itself was a unit maneuvering. Say again your call sign, Singh said into the mic. Static. A hint of breathing. A scrape like a microphone against metal. A voice, quiet, cold in the holds, lads. Then the radio went dead. Singh looked at the handset like it had teeth. Skip the ghost channel, Reyes said. He tried to laugh. It didn't stick. The next days got mean. Weather hammered us. We moved less. We spoke less. We heard more. Creaking, not tense, not ice, wood. A hull shifting in a swell that wasn't there. Layered sounds like ropes under strain. Chains bumping. A bell, faint sometimes, and always the horn, like a tired animal making sure you knew it still lived. We started seeing things too. At first, just glimpses, a rail line of something dark against the horizon. Then dawn, a mass like a finger scratching the sky, then a shadow under blowing snow. Then, one evening, when the light went slate and the sea yawned open in great black lanes, we saw her. She came out of a veil of ice fog, no engine sound, no wake. A long, low hull, riveted plate, rust running like dried blood down her sides. A tall stack, the deck crooked, like she was tired. Railings bent, patches of old paint the color of bad teeth. The bow cut through pancake ice with a slow, patient chew. A name on the bow, letters scoured but there. Not bright, not lit. Seen more in the mind than the eye. Baychimo. We froze. I mean that literally. Our breath stopped. Our bodies forgot how to be warm. We weren't far. 200 yards, maybe. The open lead was wide here, black water seething. She moved without moving. A glide through tar. No crew on deck. No smoke. No flags. Just a ship that should not be. In a year, it had no business visiting. Jesus, O'Rourke whispered. Don't say his name, Reyes said under his breath like a kid. Radio, Singh said, voice small. He keyed up. Any station, this is Army Element 5-2. We have eyes on a, he paused, like the word was a fragile thing. Vessel. Position grid, he rattled numbers. He said them twice. He waited. The net came alive with static, a voice like we heard before, washed out by snow and time, whispering, hold course, hold. Then our company net cut in, clean and modern and real. The butter bar asking why we weren't on scheduled reports. Top telling us to keep it together, two worlds fighting in the same speaker. We watched Baychimo slide along the edge of the lead. She turned just a hair, as if her head had cocked to listen. Then she drifted into fog and the fog closed behind her like a mouth. We didn't talk much after. We broke camp with hands that shook. We moved inland, away from the water, like distance could slow it down. In the dark, I dreamed of stairs under my boots, steel rungs rimed with frost. A door with a small round window that fogged as if someone breathed on the other side. The horn kept us company till morning. The next day, footprints again. Not coming out of the water this time, coming from the land. They circled our tent like a dog circling something it wants to understand. A few prints paused at the stove's exhaust, like whoever it was wanted heat. There were small prints too. Bare, little toes. I tasted bile. Prank, O'Rourke said. He sounded like he didn't believe himself. Whose bare feet? Miller asked. He looked at me like I should answer. I had nothing. We moved camp, twice. Each time, prints found us by morning. Each time, we found little things missing. A spoon, a spare glove, a radio battery. Once, the photo Reyes kept folded in his pocket. His kid with cake on her face. He looked for it with a quiet I did not like. He put on his gloves like he was holding a throat. We kept seeing the ship, always at dusk, always at the edge, sometimes close enough to smell a wet iron breath. Once we saw movement on her deck, a line of figures in heavy coats and caps, heads down, marching to nowhere. They faded when we blinked. That was worse than if they'd waved. We couldn't keep pretending. We called it in. Top told us to stay put and keep eyes. He said a weather bird might fly the next day if the wind let up. The butter bar asked dumb questions about identification marks and maritime rules. He used the word anomaly like it could cage the thing. Singh read more on his phone. The file he had wasn't big, but it felt like it grew. He said Baychimo was a hardy freighter. Tramper, he called it, hauled furs and goods. Got trapped in ice in the early 1930s. The crew abandoned it on the ice for a bit, then came back, then left again, then a storm cut the ship free. After that, people kept seeing it, boarding it, trying to claim it. It would vanish into fog or weather or bad luck. Last sighting in the late 1960s. After that, stories. Nothing solid. An unsolved line in a ledger. What keeps a ship alive that long? Reyes asked. Luck, Singh said. Cursed luck, O'Rourke said. Ships don't haunt, Miller said, like he could force it to be true. People haunt. Places haunt. Maybe we're in its place, I said. I didn't like saying it. Words make doors. We agreed on one thing. We needed to see it up close. We needed something to hold up against the fear. Proof. Photos. Metal. A thing you can hit with a wrench and say, see, it's just this. That's the lie soldiers tell before they do the dumb thing. For courage. For control. For control. Just before dusk, we saw the ship again. Closer than before. The lead had opened wider. Big black lane. The hull drifted along it like it owned the water. The deck glistened. The rail threw off thin icicles like teeth. The horn called once. Long. Low. Low. Almost impatient, we set a plan. We roped up, tied into each other like climbers. I would go first with Reyes just off my shoulder. Singh took the radio. Miller had the med kit. O'Rourke carried extra rope and the only decent camera. We anchored our line to a buried picket. We inched across the ice to the water's edge. It sounded hollow sometimes. That sound goes straight to your spine. We found a spur of ice thick as a dock where the lead narrowed. The ship drifted toward it. Slow, patient, like a horse to a fence. The hull came near enough the spray misted our faces and left little stars of frost in our eyebrows. The ship had scars everywhere, dents, patches, long streaks where rivets wept rust. The name on the bow showed full now, Baychimo, letters like old bones. A ladder hung near the bow. Old rope, wood rungs. It creaked. It should have been rotten. It wasn't. That was the worst thing to see. The ladder wanted hands. I hate this, Miller said. Then don't fall in, Reyes said. The hull leaned in a little as if the ship sighed. The horn stayed quiet. The wind dropped. Sound went weird, like we were inside a room. 2 minutes, I said. We step on. We step off. If anything is wrong, we go back to the rope and bail. Define wrong, O'Rourke said. You'll know, I said. The ladder swung. I grabbed it. It felt like a tongue in winter. Stiff but wet. I climbed. Boot, hand, boot, hand. The ship smelled like old cargo and salt and a hold where the air never moved. I stepped onto the deck. It dipped the tiniest bit under me, acknowledging. Reyes came up behind me. The deck had a frost crust that crackled like sugar under our feet. We moved slow. We listened hard. Radio check, Singh said from the ice edge. I have you at 2-minute start. Copy, I said. My voice sounded wrong in my own ears. The deck was a tangle of lines frozen in lazy curves. Hatches dogged down with rims of ice. A winch sat with its teeth bare. The wheelhouse windows were filmed over like cataracts. A bell hung at the foremast. It was rimed white. It looked heavy. Hello, Reyes said, gentle, like he didn't want to wake someone. Something knocked below our boots. Not once, 3 times. Slow, like someone trying to get our attention without alarming us. The deck responded with a dull boom that went up my bones. Minute 30, Singh said. His voice felt too thin. We moved toward the wheelhouse. The door wasn't locked. The handle stuck, then gave. The hinges groaned, and the sound was like a man straining to stand after too long on his knees. Inside it was dim, glass frosted. The room smelled old, oil, tobacco from a million cigarettes gone stale. A mug sat sideways in a corner, fused to the deck by ice. The wheel stood midships. Someone had wrapped it with twine years ago, and the twine was stiff like bone. A chart lay under a film of ice. I brushed it with a glove. The paper ripped a little. I saw lines, islands, the rough bite of a coast. 45 seconds, Singh said. We're leaving, I said. But my boots didn't move. They wanted to. My brain wanted them to. But something in the air said, wait. It said, listen. It said we weren't the ones moving pieces here. Reyes pointed. On the bulkhead, a picture nailed up crooked. Men in heavy coats, caps. Their faces grainy but eyes clear. Hard men. Proud. The caption burned into a plate under it. The words swam, then fixed. Crew of Baychimo, 1931. 30 seconds, Singh said. His voice climbed. I took one step back. That was when the door behind us slammed. Not wind. A hit. Hard, hard. The sound went through me. The bell on the foremast rang once, a dull, choked sound like it hated the job. The deck under our feet rolled a hair, as if the ship turned her head. Out, I said. My voice broke. We moved for the door. I grabbed the handle. It was cold enough to bite through the glove. It stuck hard, then turned. The door opened onto night. The air tasted like iron filings. The horn blew, much closer now, and I felt it in my ribs. We scrambled down the ladder. Reyes hit the ice, swore, and grabbed the rope. I followed. We shoved off with boots, and the ship drifted away with no wake, no shame, like a cat not yet done with a mouse. In the fog behind her wheelhouse, just a second, I saw a figure. Cap. Coat. One hand on the rail, the other raised in a small, polite wave. Then he was gone. We backed away and the spell broke. Wind took our faces again. The world got loud. Singh grabbed my sleeve with white knuckles. What the hell, he said. Not a question. A prayer with no God. We went back to camp in silence. I couldn't feel my hands. I couldn't stop smelling tar. It got mean after that. The ship was part of our days now, or our nights. Time blurred. The horn showed up at noon sometimes, then at midnight not at all, then at dawn right by our tent, so close the stove rattled. The radio turned against us. It took our voices and stitched them into something old. We called a top and hear instead a man talk about ice like a living enemy. We'd report a grid and get back a course and speed in knots we didn't understand because it referenced buoys that didn't exist. Once, clear as a slap, a voice said, "Stop stealing." We all stared at the pack list. I hadn't taken anything. None of us had, but the ship didn't believe us. The prints came every night, circling, pausing by the stove. Sometimes they went away from camp, down to the water's edge, and didn't come back. Once, around 3 in the morning, I woke to boots on the snow right by my head. A pause. A breath. A low whisper I couldn't make out. When I rolled over, the tent wall moved like a hand had just pressed there and lifted away. We started losing more. A coil of rope. Our spare stove hose. The photo again. The one that had been taken from Reyes and then turned up somehow in his pocket 2 days later but now gone for good. A knife. A book. The camera, which we'd hoped would hold something the world would honor. That hurt. We searched packs. We accused each other with our eyes. We didn't say the words. We didn't need to. Sleep fell apart. Dreams climbed in. I walked on decks I didn't know and knew too well. I learned the names of places in a ship I'd never served on. Foxhole, Lazarette, the holds. The words sat in my mouth heavy as slug lead. I woke with my tongue tasting salt. I woke with the idea of coal dust under my nails. We tried to move inland far. We climbed a ridge and set camp in a place with broken rock and a view of nothing but white. That night, the horn blew anyway. The tent shook. The stove flared as if more oxygen had come from nowhere, then dipped as if something pulled air away. In the morning, prints again. And a new thing. On the snow, near the mess kit, a coin. Old. Old. Worn thin. It had a ship on it. Not Baychimo. Another one. The date was 1920-something, but the last number was scraped by years. The coin was so cold it hurt to look at. We didn't touch it. We left it there. Later, it was gone. We didn't talk about that either. We argued now, not the laughing kind. The ugly kind. Me and Reyes nearly came to hands over whether to try and burn the ship if it came close. He said oil burns. I said ghosts don't. Miller shouted at both of us till his voice broke. O'Rourke cried once in the dark. He did it quiet. The sound still got in everyone's head. Singh stopped reading his files. He started praying in a language he hadn't used since he was a kid. The weather went bad again. Blowing snow like salt in an open wound. White out. We held on to each other by rope even inside camp. The world narrowed to the 6 feet around your face. The horn blew steady. The radio whispered steady. The deck knocked under us though we were on land. We were on a ship now and the land was pretending. 3 nights into the blow, Reyes vanished. He had last watch. He was a good soldier. He didn't screw around. He checked the lines. He checked the stove. He checked the perimeter like we taught each other to do without a word. I woke to the kind of silence that only happens after something loud has stopped. The horn had been blowing, and then it wasn't. My ears rang with the missing sound. I sat up. Cold hit my cheeks. The tent flap was open. Snow blew in lazy and cruel. Reyes' sleeping bag was flat, empty. We got up fast. Boots, coats, radios. We shouted his name. Stupid to shout in a whiteout, but we did it anyway. The snow ate our words. We followed the guard line to the post. The little windbreak we'd built was half buried now. The rope that tied to Reyes' belt lay slack, cut, not frayed, not snapped, cut clean. Prints went away from the post. Not ours. Big boots. Small bare feet too, a flock of them. They led into the white. We followed because we were idiots, or brothers, or both. We moved in a file, rope between us. I was on point. The world was a bowl of milk. My headlamp made it worse. Snow like a million gnats finding every hole in your hood. I cut my hands and called, "Reyes!" The wind slapped the mane back. The prints led to the edge of a black. The lead opened right there. Even in the blow, the water was a night within night. The prints went to the edge and turned. They went along the lip. We followed. Our rope snagged on a chunk of ice. O'Rourke untangled it with hands that looked like pink wood. Then the ship was there. She loomed out of the white with no warning. A wall, a city block. She wore the storm like a veil. The horn didn't blow. The deck lights were off, but in the wheelhouse I saw a glow. Not electric. Something warmer. Fire, maybe, or a memory of fire. On her deck, at the bow, stood a line of men. Coats, caps. Faces I'd seen on that wall photo, or ones like them. They stood and they watched us, not cruel, not kind. Like we were weather. In front of them, by the rail, stood Reyes. He was bareheaded. His hair was wet with ice. He stared down at us like he had forgotten our names. He held his own photo in his hand, the one of his kid, and he let it go. It fluttered like a lame bird and vanished into the storm. "Reyes," I screamed. I felt my throat tear. "Come on." He blinked slow. He put a hand to the rail. His mouth moved. It looked like he was counting. 1 to 10. Maybe making himself brave. Maybe making himself small. He nodded. To us. To them. I don't know. Then he swung a leg over the rail to climb down the ladder. His boot hit the top rung, and the ladder snapped like it had been waiting for that exact moment. He fell. We lunged. The rope jerked all of us toward the black water. I jammed my ice spikes in without thinking. O'Rourke did too, screaming. Miller locked a figure-8 break on the rope like he was wrestling a mad dog. Singh lay on his belly, arms out. Reyes didn't hit water. A wave like oil lifted him and set him against the hull. He grabbed a strake. His fingers found a rust lip. He hung and kicked. He looked up at the deck. The men up there didn't move. Not to help. Not to stop. They watched. Not blank. Not interested. Witnesses, maybe. Or judges. "Hold," Miller shouted, voice a raw thing. "Hold, hold." We held. My shoulders went hot, then numb. The rope creaked like an old tooth. Reyes kicked again, and his boot found a foothold that wasn't there a second before. He got a knee up. He scrabbled. He was a bug on a plate of iron. He got 2 hands to the lowest rail. He hauled. He fell onto the deck like a drowned seal. For a heartbeat, he lay on his back with his chest heaving and his eyes wide as coins. Then he rolled and crawled to the ladder stump. He started looking for a way down. On the deck, a man stepped forward. Coat, cap, a face lined by wind and worry and long decisions. He knelt. He put a hand on Reyes' shoulder. The kind of hand a father uses when a boy must either stand or stop. The man's mouth moved. I couldn't hear him. The wind took the words and shredded them. But I knew what it looked like. It looked like, "You're not for this ship." Another man shook his head. Another nodded. A meeting without a table. The man who had touched Reyes stood, stepped to the bell and rang it once. The sound was not dull now. It was clear, strong, final. Reyes looked at us over the rail. He looked at me like he wanted permission. I don't know what I gave him with my eyes. It must have been enough. He swung his legs back over. He lowered to the broken ladder stump. He dropped. He hit the ice on a kneel and slid. We grabbed him. We fell. We scrambled like blind animals. We got to our feet and we ran along the lead, our rope tangling our legs, our hearts big ugly drums. Behind us, the horn blew once. A long, low note that could have been anger or relief. I don't know, we didn't stop till the ship vanished. We didn't stop when the prince crossed ours. We didn't stop when the whiteout went purple and then black. We ran until our legs failed and we fell into camp like men thrown back from a door. Reyes had frost on his lashes. His cheeks were slab white. Miller slapped warmth into him and cursed until he cried. Reyes coughed a sound like a ball of tin and then he grabbed my coat and said, "She wants crew, not cargo. Don't give her names." I nodded like I knew exactly what that meant. We packed with hands that couldn't. We left the stove, we left the picket, we left the good shovel. We cut our gear to the bone and moved inland, up and away, past the ridge, past the place our map said was safe. We moved till the land rose into a short line of black rock that the wind had licked clean. We collapsed there under a lee, and we waited for the world to show us mercy, or not. They found us 2 days later. A guard bird with a fat belly and a door gunner who looked like Christmas to me. The sky was open. The wind had sagged. The sea smoked out there beyond the ice like a heart that couldn't quit. We were a small dark knot in a world of white, and the helicopter's rotor wash lifted our souls right out of our bodies and shook them like blankets. Back at the station, Top didn't yell. He looked at us and his eyes did the work. The butter bar asked all the questions you expected. We told part of the truth. We told about the weather, about the lead, about losing the line and finding it again, about nearly going into the drink. We kept the rest, the coin, the prince, the bell, the men. We held those close like hot stones because some things you speak and they get real, more real than you need. Singh tried to pull the data from his phone. The file with his notes on the ship was gone, not deleted. Gone like it had never lived there. The photos he thought he'd snapped had a blur where the ship should be, or a smear, or a blank that looked like an eraser ran over that part of the world and took it away. Reyes got frostbite in 2 fingers. He lost the tips. He was mad about it. He shouldn't have been. It should have been worse. He kept patting his pockets like he'd lost something. He never said what. I think he meant time, or his nerve, or the name of the man who put a hand on his shoulder up there. We asked the locals who came in to sell carvings and stories if they'd seen anything on the sea. They nodded in that way people do when they've heard a song you're just now learning. They said Baychimo comes to those who don't leave well enough alone, not to hurt, not to help, to remind. Of what? They shrugged. That the ice has rules, that the sea keeps score, that iron can carry a soul if you let it. We rotated out 2 weeks later. I had the shakes on the plane. The guy next to me thought I was dope sick. He offered gum. I took it and chewed like it might keep my teeth from chattering loose. I dreamed of ladders for months. I rolled to my wife's hand on my chest, her face scared. I told her I was fine. I told her I'd be right back. I went to the sink and I smelled tar rising from the drain. Years later now, on a porch with a cheap beer and an old bag. Kids in the yard making noise like life. The air is warm. The trees are green and honest. My hands are mostly steady. And some nights, when the sky goes a certain blue before full dark, I hear it. Faint. A horn that doesn't belong to any truck on any highway. Not around here. It comes from the wrong direction. From where there's no water. It comes soft. It comes like a friend clearing his throat before he says your name. I don't pick up the radio anymore. I don't keep one in the garage. When my boy asked to go into the Navy, I told him sure if he wanted. Just not north, I said it casual. He didn't hear the prayer inside it. I kept one thing from that winter. People think I'm dumb when I tell them this. We had no proof. We came home with less than we left with. But I kept the glove I found the day after the ship first came up to us. It was wedged in the ice by the lead, leather, stiff, old as a story. It had stitching a man did by hand, the kind of stitch you learn when you fix what the world keeps breaking. On the inside of the glove, there's a name inked in. Faded. I can read the first letter sometimes if the light hits right. It isn't mine. It isn't any of ours. I keep it in a drawer I don't open. If I touch it, the house smells like a hold. I learned that once. I don't need to learn it again. You want to hear what I think? I think Baychimo never sank. I think she doesn't want to stop. Some things get bent into forever by the way people leave them. A freighter. A place. A soldier who won't quit walking in his head even when his boots are off. I think the ship takes on crew when it can. It doesn't steal them. Not exactly. It offers them a way to keep moving when everything else says rest. Some say that's a curse. Some say that's mercy. I don't have the right to call it. I know this. That winter we were on her sea. She saw us. We saw her. We touched her skin and she tapped back from below like a neighbor. She left us with less. She left us with more too. The kind of more you don't brag about. The kind that makes you quiet when someone talks about whiteouts like they're pretty. If you ever hear the horn, don't answer with your name. Don't step onto anything you don't plan to belong to. Keep your rope tied to your boys and make sure it's you who cuts it if something on the other end decides it needs you more. Don't take souvenirs. Don't even take pictures. The ice will decide what you get to keep. And if you do end up on deck, and a man in a cap puts his hand on your shoulder, look him in the eye and be honest. Tell him if you're crew. Tell him if you're cargo. He'll know anyway. They all do, on that ship that keeps sailing in a world that pretends it doesn't. Sometimes I go out at night when the house is asleep. I stand on the grass and the sprinklers make a soft hiss that isn't spray if you close your eyes. It's water along a hull. It's ice brushing iron. I count to 10 and I stomp. I go back inside. I lie down. I dream of a bell ringing once, clean and final, and I hear a voice I never met say, "Not this one. Not tonight. Let him walk." And I do. For now. So that's the end of our video. If you made it this far, make sure to hit like and subscribe. It really helps the channel and it's free. And if you want more terrifying encounters like this one, check out the other videos on screen right now. Thanks for watching and stay safe out there. See you soon.